Youth in high school living in poverty or low-income households are 7 times more likely to drop out of school than those coming from higher-income households. Children who grow up in poverty are also more likely to have children when they're still teenagers or be incarcerated. Education allows students to learn valuable life skills and knowledge which we use when applying for jobs. Once we grow older, we use that knowledge to invest into our communities, ensuring a successful future. Over the years, however, the education quality in poor-income communities have still remained subpar. These public schools lack the resources to provide their students with a proper, modern education.
The problem lies within the public schools built within low-income communities. Since public schools are funded 60% by the state and 25% locally, which rely on income and property taxes, it poses a threat to poorer areas of the country and causes funding disparities. The wealthier school districts are able to attain more funds, while the lower income areas cannot attain as much. For example, the children from lower income households will not be exposed to as many books compared to the average student. Low income families only own one book for every 300 children on average. Contrast this with middle income neighborhoods where there are 13 books per one child. This exemplifies how less wealthy schools and families with the highest needs end up receiving the least resources available. Reduced funding also diminishes teaching salaries. Having quality educators is essential for the development of youth, as well as helping students make life decisions about their future. In lower funded school boards, the reduced salaries and benefits result in teachers being less motivated to teach. The quantity of teachers applying for teaching positions in those areas are also very low. In a 2004 report by Renewing Our Schools, Securing Our Futures, an educational task force, schools in poor communities tend to have more staffing issues. Demand for teachers has generally increased, and teachers choose to work in suburban schools and schools with more resources. Moreover, the stress of working with underprivileged children, and in many cases lack of support in doing so, can cause a higher turnover rate than in wealthier schools. These teachers are often unreliable or leave, and this means schools have to continually struggle with training new teachers. At the end of all this, the quality of teachers will be much lower compared to average, and the students will receive unsatisfactory education.
Children inside of these schools are also treated differently from the average public school. Teachers in these schools will end up treating their students as delinquents as opposed to children who are ready to learn. Well, why is this? In a 2013 report by the Population Reference Bureau, U.S. working families headed by racial or ethnic minorities were twice as more likely to be poor or low income. In addition, with the low quality of education mentioned previously, youth are much more unmotivated to learn in these areas, so there will be higher crime rates in these neighborhoods according to Statistics Canada. In public schools of low-income neighborhoods, the majority of children will be more disadvantaged than their more privileged peers. Due to this setback, children in low-income families are more likely in failing to complete their education as they don't even receive close to the quality of learning as wealthier or even middle-class students. These children will remain in a vicious cycle of constant economic struggle as their future generations will remain in the same position, being given the same amount of education and unable to move up in society.
So how can we bring change to this? How do we return fairness and equal opportunity to the lives of poor children? One thing that we can do is to make public schools into places where community services, support, and opportunities can be found, such as food services, after-school enrichment, or early childhood opportunities. This place needs people from nonprofit, local government, business sectors to form close working partnerships with the public schools to create a community-invested school. When this is done right, it can positively make the difference of many young, low-income children.
For example, we can look at Glencliff High School in Nashville. Glencliff used to be known for problems such as gangs, teen pregnancy, and low graduation rates. However, education and community leaders worked together a few years ago to transform this school into a community-invested one. Today, Glencliff's reputation is based on student leadership and community service. Its students intern at local health clinics, take leadership roles, and work on community service projects. The strategy of introducing the low-income schools with community partnerships can really bring change to many young lives. The quality of public schools in poor-income areas has been an issue which has been overlooked, which affects millions of youth. The lack of resources, teachers, and aid is an injustice that will remain a major problem in our society. The development of community-invested public schools is a solution that will bring an equal opportunity to people of all ages.
Created using Powtoon.